Jane, you can sit there or there, either one.
Okay.
Either one is fine. Do you want to come one over? Do you mind coming one over?
No, I'd like to be able to exit if I have to use the bathroom.
Okay, well then just stay right there. Ron, you could come here if you want.
Okay.
Great, so
I
we
can,
make use of this.
Help it move things around.
Oh, I don't.
Great. Okay, you have a choice seat right by the back there.
Very what?
A choice seat.
Thank you. I figured I would just come in.
It's Nick, is it right?
Nate.
Nate, hey, can you get the little, got it, is you gotta, make that window go away.
Got it.
Yeah, exactly, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, just let me know what else.
That's it, thank you, cameraman. Okay, wow, delighted to have you all here, you did it. Thank you so much for joining. We also have some folks joining online. Let's look at that group here. Welcome online. We have David Califon in Los Angeles and Patrick McGranahan in Denver and Tom, I don't know Tom. But anyway, welcome everyone for this celebration of maps and history and art and science. I told some people, what I was doing today, and they're like, they just don't get it. So let me share with you. We're gonna do a little. The first thing we're gonna do is a little collaborative annotation exercise that I'm really excited about. It's a new feature on Pixium, this website that I've been working on. If you want to participate, so you can view on your phone, but if you want to participate, you need to be registered on the site to if you want to put a dot on a map. So scan that. You can also just go to the digitalgallery.org and sign yourself up. And we're going to do a little exercise. And if you don't sign up, you still can look on your phone. And I encourage you, we're going to be looking at this map that Ken brought, but we also have a digital copy of it. And
Will it be up on the screen too?
it will be on the screen. Yeah, it will be on the screen as well.
The Wi-Fi, does everyone have?
Oh, and if you need to get Wi-Fi, it's guest-paper, and then it's guest 1911. So
And I'm not very techy, so if you need help, ask, don't be embarrassed, okay?
practiced this last night with Eleanor, and it took a couple tries.
Do we go to Google first?
The password is lowercase guest 1911. Patrick, you're all smiles. I can see you there. Wish us luck.
I have my app ready on the phone.
You have your app on your phone?
I registered for this digital gallery thing.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, look, yeah,
How does Pixium relate to the digital gallery?
it's the same thing. I kind of changed the name to something that was a little bit less generic. So it's the same thing.
Good name.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Delighted. I hope the product is half as good as the name.
Does one forward to the other?
Yeah, hold
If
on.
I do Pixium.com, it'll end up.
Pixium.org we have, but I haven't yet moved the URL over to that.
Okay.
So this is the website, which is a series of exhibits. So each one of these tiles is an exhibit, and several Map Society members have put their images onto the site as exhibits. So Ron has 2 exhibits. Ken has an exhibit. Fred doesn't have an exhibit, but we have subjects that Fred is quite passionate about. SDUK. Anybody know what SDUK is or was?
Society for Dissemination of Useful Knowledge.
Mm.
It's
Wonderful map.
1840. Yeah. They're amazing maps, if you haven't seen them. And
Anyone
there's
that's interested in urban planning needs to look at those maps.
if you look on here at SBUK, we have.
No.
We have the maps. I think this first one looks like Amsterdam. And thanks to David Rumsey, these are all available and they're just spectacularly beautiful. So
Why is the Stones of Venice on there?
because I am interested, I've realized that I'm interested in sort of intricate, beautiful images. So John Ruskin, right? Yeah, so you could tell us about him. He's a famous architect.
I wrote my master's thesis on that, which is why I'm asking.
Well, look, I mean, I got fascinated with maps 7 or 8 years ago after doing map for a living for 5 years before that, and built the digital gallery because I wanted to facilitate digital collecting, first my digital collection. And more recently, I'm really wanting to help other people share things that they are collecting and share that more widely. But also the thing that I'm really excited about testing today, this idea of exploring a map together and putting dots on a map to the things that you individually might find of interest. And then Ken, who knows this map that we're going to look at, and he's gonna address the things that you point out with your dot on your phone. That's I can anyway. So hopefully this will.
Workout paused.
David, is that you? Hold on. Oh, it's Nick. Hello, Nick.
Nick's on.
Hello.
Okay, let me just quickly also give you the agenda for the day. For the morning. So Ken and I are going to present for maybe 20 minutes. Won't be more than that. Patrick then is going to present. I'm sorry, Patrick. I think I spelled your name wrong. Correct. Is it a capital G? Okay. Oh, but I
Yes.
missed that. Okay. So Patrick's going to talk about the Medaba map, and then Gray's going to talk about the 1940 San Francisco WPA model that is 1,600 feet of a. Can I call it a diorama? Not a diorama. Okay. It's a model. It's a
3D model.
3D model.
3D model.
Yeah.
And then Tom Bryant is going to talk about California 2.0. So I'm going to jump back now to this map that we're going to explore together. And so for those of you who have your phone, what I want you to do is to, from the home page, I'm sharing my screen. Okay, so from the home page, you're going to click on this Africa maps. And this exhibit will open up. You've got to close down. We call this the exhibit text. It's sort of general information about the exhibit. And then you're going to click on this map, the first one in the whole exhibit. And this map was published in London in 1863 by James Wilde Jr. Or two James Wilds. And we shot this map. I can't remember if it was at Ken's house or if it was in our garage, but we shot it with the 100 megapixel camera that I have. You can see the resolution of it here. And if you click on the little push pin here on your phone, okay, you should get something that opens up for you. And there's Patrick. So Patrick's already put something on the map. And I also want to point out that, like, you can, with your phone or laptop, you can zoom in on sort of any part of the map. Wandering Libyans called Lobos by the Turks. This map is wonderful. Ken picked it because it's got it's chock full of commentary by James Wilde Jr. Some of it's spurious, some of it is interesting, and some of it informational about maybe a lake or about a kingdom or any. You'll see them if you blow up the map in any one portion. You'll see little little sentences or sometimes even paragraphs.
What would be something serious?
He sometimes says. Well, there might be, you might find one in there that says, that there is only a ruler. I'm trying to think of his name. I can't think of his name at the moment, but, he's a white man and his tribe is all white and dresses in European clothing. The middle of Africa.
Right.
In the middle of West Africa, which, it's not true. Never was true. So you guys are looking at my phone now. And I'm gonna just show you, I'm gonna click on that little push pin. And then if you click on the plus on the push underneath the green thing, can you see up there the little green push pin? And underneath it, there's a plus sign on it. So when you click on that, you should get this little window that pops up called place dot on the image. So now go ahead and like zoom in on something that you find of interest.
How did he create this map? I mean, did he actually, was he based off other maps or?
Oh, yeah.
Hearsay, or was he traveling and?
So he got information from travelers. So once you find some information from some travelers, because it's not, in some ways, it's not completely up to date at that year, 1863, when but he also was working off of maps that African maps had been out for hundreds of years. So for those of you who are still trying to put a dot on the map, Ron Gibbs just put one on the map. I got that. Patrick put one on the map. I can see that. You see the green thing. So I'm gonna point one there, and then I hit confirm location, and then I can enter in, a question or any comment that you might have about it. If you see a name that submit heard before, but my dots on the map, I want to know more about it. Might be able to answer that. Or might be able to. So now I'm gonna jump back to my laptop. Does anybody have questions who's trying to put a dot on the map? Emily, how are you doing?
I'm adding one right now.
You adding one?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah.
You have questions, Doug?
Okay, I've got a question.
Yeah.
I got, I clicked the,
Yeah, confirm location.
yeah, and then what do I do next?
Then you should say, is there a place to type something in?
I can give you a login. Yeah, but if you don't log in, you can see dots, but you can't.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have to log in.
You have to log in. Log in, otherwise you can, yeah.
Oh, then I have to go find my password.
Yeah, you were gonna try to get around that.
Yeah.
Hi, Dorothy.
Oh, hi. I'll lower my hand because it's not so important, but I was trying to focus on around Monomatapa, Zimbabwe.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
you have to do it on your own device to do
I
that.
was trying to, and I couldn't somehow bring up the lollipop with the plus sign. But it's not important enough.
Okay.
Thank you. It's just such fun. This is fabulous.
Well, now we've got 7 on the map here, so I'm gonna,
You don't have.
did anyone put it on your link, Chad? Right in the middle of the. That's good, right in the middle of the content. One's great, Chad. Actually, it says, I'm not, it's.
Yeah, that's what he's selling.
Okay,
That's the greatest balance in local language.
so Ken, I'm gonna start, so Patrick's was the first one, and he pointed out not real, and what did you? Mountains of Kong? Yeah. Mountains of Kong, yeah, is a spurious mountain range. It never was there. But an early explorer by the name of Mungo Park looked up and saw what he thought was a mountain chain. And he said, when he came back from his first trip, because he survived his first trip barely, he came back and reported that to the cartographer who was working with the association who sent Mr. Park out there in the first place.
And this cartographer, Rennell, included it in his map. He waited until Park cut back and then wrote up and then drew up a map, his latest map of Africa, and included the mountains of the moon. And it kind of, the whole thing sort of blew up, and it got to be a bigger. And there are some maps that have the mountains of the moon going all the way across. Very boldly, and there are references to the mountains of the moon in Emerson, excuse me, not Emerson, Thoreau.
This one of them.
Yeah, several people.
This one of them.
Yeah, that's one of them. Edgar Allan Poe mentions the mountains of the moon in one of his
And was it
poems.
mountains of Kong and mountains of Moon? What's the difference?
Same thing, really.
Yeah.
There's different names for it. The real mountains of the moon are now called the Rwenzori Mountains, and they're here in this area here. And they were not seen until Morton Stanley, Africa in the late 19th century, and saw them for the first time. People had missed them for centuries because they were shrouded in mist. But they put water, they're still out, and the water comes down and provides water for the people and crops and that kind of thing in the area. It has for a long time.
Ken,
Anyway, next.
Ken, before you leave this, Ken.
Yes, Mom.
So there was a great adventure movie called Mountains of the Moon about the Speke Burton expedition to
Yeah.
find the headwaters of the
In the
Nile.
late 1990s, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is Lake Victoria on this map, or did they not yet find Lake Victoria at the time of this map being published?
Not yet.
Map was published. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't think so.
Could have been right around that time.
Yeah.
What's
that, Dorothy? Do you know?
I don't think so. I'm guessing. It's easy enough to look it up, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna jump to the next dot. Ken, or not Ken, Ron, you can see up here, Ron Gibbs. It's Ron, the Exodus. There we go.
So Ken, I'll give you a little hint here. I couldn't find the real spot, but one of the Ortelius maps we have is a map of the Holy Land from the 1580s or so, with a presentation of the route of the Exodus.
Oh, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Len might have that.
Yeah, and it starts in Ramses and winds through the Sinai and comes out of Jericho. And as I was going through there, I couldn't, so this might be where they crossed the Red Sea, but they left from Ramses, and I couldn't see Ramses on that map. But that's what I was looking for.
Ramses on the Egypt side.
I think you know more than I do about that.
Yeah. So, I'll just show, so the,
Is that the map with the orientation of north skewed? I think so, with the 40 years of the wandering in the desert.
don't know if it's that one, but
Also Ortelius, yeah.
can you
Hold on,
take
sorry.
the overlay off for a second? Yeah, so the route of the Exodus, there's wound through the Sinai and came up from the east into around Jericho. And that was, no one really knows what the route of the Exodus was, but it didn't stop photographers from coming up with a guess.
I'm just gonna do one thing here. I think I might have that now.
It's the Ortelius map.
This one, yeah, this
Which
one, yeah.
Which one, Dorothy?
Totius terrae
Which row?
Tilomanos stellus sigensis.
Yeah, it's the one you just had there. It's
Yeah.
top, right there. Right.
Exactly.
Yep, that's a gorgeous map.
Yeah, I have that map.
And you can see,
Oh, here you go. These are all the places.
Yeah, that's the 40 years of wandering.
Let me label them somewhere.
Yeah.
What year is that map?
Yeah.
Well, we have a later edition. Dorothy, do you know what the original year of this was?
I could, I could go and have a look. This edition? No, I don't know. I would have to look. Yeah, 1601, it says publication, yeah.
1561?
1601.
1601. Mhm,
That's a little later, I think.
mhm.
All right, well,
Okay.
let's keep going. Our third dot was from Patrick, Null Island.
That's not a promising name.
Patrick,
Yeah, and when you click it, it's not like it's hard to click in the very exact spot, so the dot kind of moves over. But Null Island is where the prime meridian and the equator intersect, and it's kind of a GIS thing where if you have bad data, it'll it'll open up on Null Island because it's 0, 0 essentially.
moving on to item 4, this was my dot, we're gonna pass over that. Nick, is this currently known as Rwanda?
Number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rwengas, is that what you were looking at?
Yeah. It doesn't look like.
Hey, Tom, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm having trouble putting the dots on my cell phone.
Did you register for the gallery? Are you like registered?
Yeah, yeah. I'm on the gallery. I have it here, but how do you transfer the dot
You need to click on the button. Can you see my screen? There should
on
be,
the cell phone? Can I do it on my cell phone?
yeah, you should be able to.
Okay.
There should be a dot button.
I see the dot button.
So you click on that, and then there's a plus dot button. You see that underneath it?
I'm not sure what you mean by click. I tap my finger on it.
Okay. Nick, I think we're gonna have to move here.
Okay, I'll talk to you later about it, because
Okay. I may call you or text you. All right,
But I think the answer to that is it's not Rwanda.
it's not Rwanda.
That's not the right part of that.
Right.
All right, we're going to 6. Emily, wow, is this, what is the Holy Ghost? Okay, so
There are multiple references there, and I don't, yeah, down
Ah,
at Holy Ghost.
Manamatapa, oh, that's what I like. Mhm.
There goes Guru. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, Holy Ghost River.
there's other references to
That's not
Holy
something I
Ghost.
noticed before.
Yeah, if you look a little bit down into the left, it says also called Holy Ghost.
Wow, wow, interesting.
Good eye.
Yeah,
There's so much. I mean, it's so.
yeah, yeah, also called Holy Ghost. Oh,
Like that, so cool.
That's
wow.
6. Let's see what's dot 7. Ron, Cape of Good Hope.
Yeah, if we could just zoom down on that. So,
Yes.
So there is Cape of Good Hope. It's that little finger-like projection there. And that is not the southernmost point of Africa, but it is a magnificent point. We had a chance to go there about 8 years ago. And it is just one of the most magnificent geographic points in the world. And a great point of great history
Yeah.
of the Dutch and the English and the
Portuguese.
Portuguese
Yeah.
and the opening of the whole East India
Right.
for the Europeans.
Yeah, that, the Portuguese were the first around, but the Dutch were the first to settle there, and they slowly made incursions in different climate from up here, so particular area wasn't known as white man's grave, it was more of Central Africa that was white man's grave.
Smart.
Could slowly kind of creep into southern, they didn't get too far out, but they got in there. But here's a little known fact that to give you an idea of why African continent was called white man's disease, white man's grave. You guys have heard of the Boer War? Okay.
Yeah, boy.
Yes.
100 or so. The British suffered 20,000 casualties in the Boer War. 8,000 of them were from bullets. All the rest were disease, enteric, dysentery and enteric,
Mhm. Oh, also, can you hear me?
Yeah, is this Doug?
Yeah, this is Doug. A branch of my family, the Rathbones, once had a branch there, but because of the Boer War, all British residents were considered spies, and they had to leave and go back to England. One of them was Basil Rathbone, who became a famous actor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But this is, of course, where Churchill made his
Patrick
name,
pointed out.
escaping from captivity during the Boer War, and making the most of that.
Mhm.
But it didn't do much good for other English people down there. Even though he personally benefited from it, of course.
All right. I'm
Anyway.
gonna move on to dot 8, St. Helena. Thank you, Patrick. This is where Napoleon was exiled for the second time after Elba.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
way out there.
And by the way, there's a member of
Not
the,
swimming in the mainland.
there's a member of IMCOS, Deirdre Boys, who has several maps about, I don't know if I have it. I don't, but they're not here, but she has beautiful maps of St. Helena, and the whole story.
Mhm.
Intricate maps. We're gonna move on to dot 9.
Did Napoleon die there?
In
Yeah.
1820.
Might have been poison. Really?
So much smaller than today, Nate.
Oh, so that point is Liberia. And what year was this map?
1863.
1863. So I think Liberia was sort of established as an independent country in the late 1840s. And it is, I mean, that little chunk is significantly smaller than it is today. But it was interesting to see there and it's so small, and to track how large it was, how large it was recognized.
In the public conscience.
Yeah, at that point in time. And sort of how uncertain the borders of all of those eventual countries were.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right there.
Hold on, where was that? Number 2.
Just above the screen. Where is it? Right. What did I just say right here?
Okay.
Timbuktu. This is the all important Niger River. I defy anyone to try to find the word Niger in it. For some reason he didn't put Niger in it, maybe because perhaps he wasn't sure. He should have been sure by now, by this point, because a number of people had seen it, and some people, a few had traveled up it. They all died, but they reported back, some of them. And this is the actual course of the Niger. It comes up and then it comes down. It starts in this area here, amorphous, but then it comes up and then it ends in the Gulf. So by that time, he had it right. By 1863, he just didn't label it because maybe, I'm guessing he wasn't sure. If you also pan back a little bit to see the Lake Chad right there, one of the largest lakes in the world. It's a really large lake. It is about half dry now. It's half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Worrisome to the area, the folks that live around there.
I'll skip ahead. I was 13, but I'll interject right now. Ken has written a wonderful article for the fall edition, and it focuses on the Niger.
Oh, this is the one for the spring. Okay, so it's the compliment.
Oh, yeah.
This is part 2
Okay.
of his article. So I encourage everybody to read that article.
Okay.
So
Carolyn.
I'm gonna keep us on track here. It's time, we're gonna move on to the next speaker. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
So thank you very much.
Many questions left.
Last question is that mountains of Cone, is that where King Kong came from? Did we give some reason how Hollywood took that or something?
Maybe. I don't know. That's very possible. I would think, I don't know.
I think
where else it
they
would-
got him somewhere in Africa,
Yeah,
right?
probably.
It's supposed to be.
Good question.
Thank you. That was really fun.
Oh, yeah.
Was that good? Was that?
Yeah.
Good? It worked. Okay, so
Geeks unite.
awesome. So I want to do it again. So if you have any message you want to do this, let me know.
Fantastic.
We're gonna do it on August 19th for sure. With Ron and I are gonna do a same drill. Okay, Patrick, I think you are on.
Okay, let me share my screen. And let's see. And how does this look? Can you guys see it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
How-
let's.
How big is it?
It might be a little bit too big. I was a little worried about that. But I try to keep everything kind of central. So so if something kind of gets cut off on the edges, it's for the most part, everything should be pretty centered. Because when I made this, it was in full screen. So but we'll get started. All right. Hello, my name is Patrick McGranahan. Good morning. And thank you, Tom, for setting this up and organizing and inviting me. It's a real pleasure to talk to you guys. And this is my talk on the mosaic map of Madaba. And first, a little bit about me. My name is Patrick McGranahan, and I am a land surveyor here in Denver, Colorado. I'm a member of the Rocky Mountain Map Society. I've also founded the Map Porn subreddit and Map Porn Twitter handle. And if anybody's interested in kind of maps and social media, at the end of this talk, we can, if you want to ask some questions, or we can talk about that too. But really, I'm kind of, one of my hobbies, I call myself like a carto tourist. And what does that mean? I like to travel. I'm sure everybody here likes to travel too. And I try to make some like component of my travel, something geospatial, or I like to visit surveying sites kind of related to my work. Kind of anything, map museums, anything geospatial. I try to make little side trips. And actually, in February, I went to Jordan. And the whole point of the, well, not the whole point, but one of the draws to Jordan is to see the Madaba mosaic map. And it's a marvelous map. And today I wanted to talk about it. All right. So this is a map of the Middle East, of the Eastern Mediterranean. And I kind of want to show you the context. There's Madaba. It's kind of just east of the Dead Sea, pretty close to Amman. It's probably about a 30-minute taxi ride from the airport. So if you're ever kind of have a long layover in Amman, it might be worth visiting to check it out if you have enough time. But the map is a little hard to interpret, so I kind of want to get us all into the context of what this region looks like. And I believe someone was talking earlier about how the orientation of different maps have different orientations. So we're going to rotate this. So north is now at the left. If you saw this map on social media or somewhere, it might take you a minute to kind of figure out what you're looking at, because it does look a lot different now. So if we zoom in a little bit, this is kind of a map I created of the Holy Land. And these are some of the features that are on the Madaba map. I didn't get all the features, but the point here is to get everybody kind of thinking about what the Middle East looks like. I think probably some of you have been to the Middle East. Maybe I know we were talking earlier about Exodus and kind of some of the Old Testament, Jericho. I think someone mentioned Jericho. But this is kind of the orientation, and this is kind of how everything is spatially related on our current maps. And let me see. So this is a 1954 reproduction of a map that was made in 1901. And it's really, there's not a lot of like good photographs of the entire map. It's in a crowded church. I have some pictures inside the church. But if you want to, if you're going to see this map, when you look at on social media, it's going to be a reproduction like this. This is all like hand drawn. This was produced by the Survey of Israel. And I'll give you a minute to kind of look around and see the different features. This is kind of a quick talk, and I won't be able to talk about all the features, but some of the main things, we can see the Dead Sea. Over to the right is the Nile River Delta of Egypt. We have Jerusalem, Jericho, the Jordan River. just kind of get a feel for how everything is kind of oriented. So now I would just want to talk a little bit about the history. This is a map of the Eastern Roman Empire or the Byzantine Empire. This map is by Sayawari. Sayawari's made hundreds of maps. He's a very talented cartographer. He's made maps of many maps of Europe, many maps of historical periods. If you're kind of researching or want to learn about a historical period, Sayawari's probably made a map of that, and it kind of helps you give a feel. It helps you get a feel for how ancient borders have changed and have been adjusted. So let's see. So I'm going to zoom in here, and we can see some of the Sayawari added some of the places. Madaba is not on here, but we have places like Gaza, the Nile River Delta. You can see kind of near the Dead Sea, there's a town called Alia Capitolina. My Latin's not very good. That's actually Jerusalem. After the Romans destroyed Jerusalem, they kind of rebuilt a colony there, and that's what it was called, but that's essentially Jerusalem. Philadelphia is Amman. It's not the Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. So how did this map get discovered? During the late 19th century, the Ottoman era Christians in the Al-Karak region, they wanted their own settlements, and the Ottomans in Istanbul granted the Christians the right to settle in the Madaba region. And one of the stipulations was that they could only build churches in places that had historically had churches. So the settlers came there, and they kind of cleaned up the debris and the rubble, and they discovered this beautiful map underneath all the rubble. And this is the late 19th century. Slowly, word about this map came out, and scholars started to visit. And in 1901, Paul Palmer, a German Swiss architect, and Hermann Goethe, a German biblical archaeologist, they made a detailed copy of the map. And in the previous slide, we saw that, and I'll come back to the slide with the actual Madaba map, but that slide is a recreation from that 1901 drawing from Goethe and Palmer. So from the 4th to 7th centuries, Madaba was a flourishing Byzantine city. It had a bishopric. The city kind of slowly declined, and by 19th century, it was really just kind of a poor, forgotten little town. And dating of the map is it's a little difficult to date the map. Sources give different dates. There are some clues on the map, such as the basilica built by Justinian in 542, that indicate that it must have been built after this date. And in volume 1 of the History of Cartography, the map is said to be constructed between 542 and before the death of Justinian in 565. So we can say that the map was created in the later half of the 6th century. All right, let me move to the next slide. So I want to talk about the size of the finished map, the original finished map. And this is what I have here is kind of a speculative recreation. This is by Beatrice Leal. And this is, you can see the dotted line. That is what has survived. And as you can see, if the map was fully created, if we still had the full map, there's so much of the area that we could have had information about, but unfortunately, throughout the sands of time have kind of taken away our map. But what we do have is really, it's quite amazing. And
That's a great visual.
yeah, and check if you're interested, check out that article. I have a link at the end of the slide or at the end of the show to that.
Sure.
And there's also, so the actual size, some sources indicated that it might have been as large as 24 by 6 meters, or about 144 square meters. Others indicate it was closer to just 90 square meters. We really don't know. We probably never will know. The fragments that survive are about 10.5 meters by 5 meters,
This is
or about 52 square meters. Yeah, so this this is a nice like fish lens photo I found on Flickr. And this kind of gives you a feel for where the context of the map is as it is currently. This is the Church of St. George in Madaba. You can kind of see some pews, some seating to kind of give you a perspective of the size. It is a fish lens camera, so it's kind of distorted, but it's an active church and it's a popular tourist site. And there is like a column going through the middle of the map. From what I've read, the column really didn't disturb when they built the church. They took a lot of care to protect the map, so it looks like it looks like it destroyed the map. But from what I've read, it didn't really affect it that much. What's
the earliest, I guess, record of, like, has the church been there for a long time, or some building has been there? When was it acknowledged and written about?
So as far as I know, the earliest record is from the late 19th century. I don't have the right year. I think it was in the 1880s. And that was when they were, when the settlers came and kind of cleaned up the rubble, and that's how that was discovered. I don't believe there's any records in antiquity about the map. So as from what I've read, I don't remember any records, any indication that there were any records from that time. And then I want to talk about the tiles. And there are a lot of estimates on how many tiles were used in creating this map. The estimates put it between 1 and 2 million tiles, which is just mind blowing. Herbert Donner, a scholar who specialized in studying the mosaic, cited the number of 1.1 million tiles. According to Donner, there is an average of 12,000 tiles in a square meter of the mosaic. Donner further states that an expert workman can set about 200 tiles per hour. Extrapolating this figure, it would take a team of 3 craftsmen working 10-hour days about 186 days to finish the map. This doesn't include the time to lay out the design of the map or the cutting of the tiles. We can only speculate on the underlying ecosystem and infrastructure it would require to enable the mosaic to be created. But it must have been a team effort, a community effort. Maybe the bishop wanted this map. Who knows? It's just the shroud of history kind of prevents us from knowing these things. But the person who designed this must have been a master cartographer. Now I want to move on a little bit. So yeah, I only have about 20 minutes to talk about this. Here's a plan of the current church. You can kind of see in the middle there is the map, kind of that kind of see the basic shape of the map. And if you visit, it's a pretty popular tourist site. It's really this town. This map is like the pride of their town. You can see images of this map all over the town. It's very tourist friendly. They have a little building next door to it for tour guides to come, and they have a reproduction on the wall, and tour guides can kind of point at different features of the map to help tourists understand it. It was a really pleasant experience visiting it. And this book is really my main source. This is Herbert Donner, who I mentioned earlier. He's like he's a scholar that did a lot of research on this map, and he has over 150 features he's identified on the map. And he's got this is a sample page from it. If you're kind of interested in going down this rabbit hole, I highly recommend it. Especially if you're kind of interested in like biblical like archaeology and kind of academic topics. The book also comes with this like pull-out map, and all the features are numbered and they're indexed in the book. And I wish I could talk more about them, but I kind of want to keep this talk brief. But yeah, I highly recommend checking it out if you're into this kind of thing.
Yeah. Could you talk about why the map is oriented towards the east and not the north? Interesting point, if I remember.
So I've read a number of things. Donner says that churches were oriented towards the east, and that's why the map was oriented to the east. I don't know if we know for sure. I think that's like that's a common topic, especially when you talk about TO maps.
but Mataba is to the east of Jerusalem, so
Yeah,
you wonder why.
and I thought about
pointing
that
the way.
too.
Yes,
Because there's actually like at that time, at that era, Christianity actually had spread to the east.
yes.
There were
Yeah,
a lot of churches to the east. So
yes, the Byzantine Empire was quite extensive then, yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, that kind of touches on another topic I probably won't be able to get into, but the question of why was the map created? And some people think it was a pilgrim map, but I kind of don't think so. I mean, take a look. You don't really see any like roads. There's not, I mean, everything is pretty cartographically. There's some fidelity in terms of scale and how everything's laid out. It obviously was long before GPS and surveying, but there's still an admirable amount of fidelity to the actual lay of the land. But I don't think it was necessarily a pilgrim map because there's really, if it was a pilgrim map, there'd be kind of like directions and roads. There are a few roads on here, but
Patrick,
mhm.
can I field some questions from the audience here for you?
Yeah,
There gotta be some questions.
we might be going over time though. It's if we start running out of time, let me know.
Let me ask a question here. Does anybody besides Gray and Tom want to present today? Anybody have anything? Okay, well then we'll take a little bit of.
If you want to fill a slot for a few minutes.
Okay, all right. Even still, I think we can probably go for another 5 minutes now with questions. So do you have a question?
Yeah, it's there are some tan blank spots on the map, like just below the Dead Sea, or those just sort of sand seas where there was nothing that was buildable there. Or what was going on in those spots?
So you're asking about kind of like to kind of the west of the Dead Sea, how there's like that blink area.
I think he's asking about this. And
Oh, okay. Oh, nice.
Yes, right.
I did not know you could do that on Zoom. That's very cool.
Right, yes.
I believe that those areas were just destroyed over time. And this is not the actual map. This is a recreation, a very true recreation, but this is still a recreation. So I believe those parts were kind of destroyed. And Donner talks about how there were grave robbers that destroyed it. There's evidence that there was a fire and like rafters had like fallen onto the map and kind of destroyed parts of the map. Even I guess like rodents had destroyed parts of the map. So there's a lot of it is lost. I think those areas are just kind of destroyed and just lost.
I think we have Pam.
Oh, yeah, so you had said that it wasn't created as a pilgrim map, so is there no understanding of actually why it was created then? And the other one is about Jerusalem. I think I read in the blurb that it was pretty accurate. There were some really accurate things. I mean, how did they get to this accuracy at that time? It's just extraordinary.
Okay, those are two good questions. For me, like I'm the one who's kind of speculating that's not a pilgrim map based on what I kind of see. Donner says that the purpose of the map was kind of this is kind of getting evangelical, but it was to kind of to show the Holy Spirit of God and kind of to kind of illuminate some of the stories from the New and Old Testament. I kind of agree with that, but I'm not like an academic scholar. I'm not a theologian, so I would kind of leave that to the scholars to kind of come up with. And your second question was about Jerusalem, and as a land surveyor, like that's a great question. Like how did they get this so correct? And I'm gonna talk a little bit more about Jerusalem. But yeah, they didn't have theodolites. They didn't have lenses. I think just having like telescopes and lens, like the theory of lenses has like totally like revolutionized map making. And I say that as a surveyor. I think Donner talks a fair bit about how whoever came up with the map definitely lived in the area and they were very familiar with the area. And Jerusalem is not too far from Madaba, so it's probably just firsthand experience of visiting. I'm gonna keep going because I think we're gonna run out of time.
Yeah, I think we should wrap up in like 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay. Let's see. I think it's kind of stuck. Okay. So just wanted to, I wanted to show a couple of features. This is the Jordan River. You can see there's a little ferry and there's like a rope that goes across. This is a ferry to transport passengers and cargo back and forth. And you can see like a little guard tower. And it's thought that that is the guard tower to watch the ferry crossing or to watch the crossing. Part of my trip, I did visit this area, and the Jordan River is quite narrow. It's more like a creek. You can kind of see it in this photo. It's kind of in the middle ground. In the foreground is Jordan. And in the kind of across the river, that's the West Bank of Palestine or Israel. You can see an Israeli flag kind of in the middle there. This is a spot where it's thought that Jesus was baptized. So you can see there's a lot of pilgrims and tourists. And there's people, I don't think you could see in this photo, but people are getting in the water and getting rebaptized. And I wanted to also touch on this. This is from the Dead Sea. And you can see there's a boat. It looks like they're carrying salt. And there's 2 people here. But you can see that it was someone very deliberately defaced the mosaic. And this is an example of iconoclasm. And I won't really talk about iconoclasm, but it was at one point, at different points in history, religious zealots had decided that images of man and representations were forbidden. So they would intentionally destroy that. I'm going to keep moving. If we have some questions at the end, there's also some animals. You can see a fish in the Jordan River. There's a deer. In another place, there's a lion. Apparently during the biblical times, there were lions in this part of the world. I don't think there are any today. And I'm kind of moving a little quickly. This is what Jerusalem looks. This is an actual picture. And you can see it's a pretty dusty place. And the tiles have faded, unfortunately. And that's just how it is. Here's Palmer and Kute's reproduction. And so this is a little bit more clear. And I just want to talk about a couple features here. This is the Cardo. The Cardo, most Roman cities would have a kind of main street that would run through the city. And it was called the Cardo. It was a fairly straight street. They would have markets and shops and traders. Jerusalem actually had 2 Cardos, and you can kind of see at the top of the image, there's the one that kind of elbows, curves. It comes from, there's a forum to the left and kind of curves around. If you go to Jerusalem, you can actually see the Cardo or parts of it. It's kind of underground, but some of the columns have remained. There's kind of a little museum there. And in the museum, there's this mural. And this mural is actually supposed to be a Byzantine era representation. So this is what it might have looked like. And I'm going to kind of move quickly. Let's see. And one more look at Jerusalem. And this is, as we'll see, this is a fairly true representation of Jerusalem, even though it is kind of oval shaped. Outside of the Church of St. Peter in Gallicantu, in Jerusalem, they have this cool map. And I'm so glad they had this map, because this is Jerusalem at the time of the Madaba map. And take kind of a glance, there's many churches here. You can see the Cardo kind of going north-south, and then you can see that second Cardo kind of elbowing down next to the temple.
Right.
And I'm just going to rotate that. And I like that there's contour lines on this. It's pretty cool.
Right.
Couple more features. We have the Damascus Gate and the Church of the Anastasis, which is the Holy Sepulchre. This is a site where it said that Jesus was crucified and the cave he was put in. It's probably the most holy site in all of Christianity. And next to that Church of St. Peter in Gallicantu, there's actually this model. And I think I heard someone talking about, we're gonna have another talk about models today. of another model. And I
Yeah.
have to say, I love these kind of models. I will travel on a bus for an hour across just to see a model of someplace. I love these things, but this is very cool. This is a Byzantine era model. I mean, there's many models of Jerusalem, and most of them really don't focus on this era, but I just want to point out a couple of things. We did see kind of in the foreground, that's the Damascus Gate. You can see like there's a column when you first come in. You can kind of see the Cardo vanishing out to the right a little bit. And then I'll mention, you can see the Temple Mount. There's like a hill to the left, and it's just a kind of like lonely area. Apparently during the Byzantine era, there really wasn't much going on. It was just kind of ruins, and it was kind of a forgotten place. We think of the Temple Mount, that's where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is, and the Wailing Wall. And we think of that as like a very contentious area now, but during the Byzantine era, apparently it was just like a forgotten place that people really didn't visit. And I have one more. This is looking from the east, looking west. This would be kind of where the Mount of Olives is. And you can see the temple to the left. And I think that's St. Stephen's Gate in the foreground. But yeah, I'm going to, let's see. So here's kind of my sources. If anybody wants to contact me with questions, I will be going to IMCOS in Helsinki this year. So I know I'm not there in San Francisco right now, but if anybody wants to hang out, have a cup of coffee in Helsinki,
Yes.
I would, contact me and we can meet up. What's that, Tom?
August?
Yes, it's actually, I think it's when you're having your,
When we're having our meeting on the 19th.
yeah. So I'm going there. Wes Brown's also coming with, he kind of told me about it and gave me the idea to come. So we'll have some Denver people there. That kind of wraps it up. Are there any questions?
You might have, let's take a couple questions. So, Fred?
What language is the map in?
It's in Greek.
Oh, yes, definitely Greek, yes.
Yeah. Tom?
On the model you were just showing with the Temple Mount, it doesn't show the mosque, and I would have thought when that model was originally built, that the mosque actually did exist.
I believe Muhammad was
No.
born just after the
Yeah.
Justinian era.
Yes, this
So-
was made pre-Muslim
Yeah.
period. The area was first captured by the Sasanians, who were Persians. This is the last gasp of the Persian Empire in that area. But no, there were no Muslims there yet.
Yeah, that's right. So the Persians came and kind of devastated the area in, I think it was 614, 614.
Right.
So, and then I forget when Muhammad was born, but yeah, to answer your question, the mosque was not there yet.
Right.
So Patrick, what is map porn?
Yeah.
I know everybody wanted to ask the question. So
It's a very, yeah, it's safe for work. It's just it's kind of a Reddit, Reddit people post images, and there's all
Right.
kinds of these porn, different things. Like there's an earth porn where people post cool photos of geology and they're like cool sites. Map porn is just like for people to post high quality maps and to share them and talk about them.
Mhm.
I started it about, I think 13 or 14 years ago, and it was kind of on a lark. And, and I've always been a map geek, and it kind of slowly evolved. And, Reddit was a very small thing back then, but now Reddit's huge. There's about 2.4 million subscribers to map porn. So it's kind of become big. It's helped raise my profile in the mapping community for sure.
okay, I just wanted to make sure we wouldn't get arrested if we went.
Yes.
No,
It's not Florida.
I'll tell you what, that name is a blessing and a curse, because I get a lot of like people who do not like the name, but it's also somehow it attracts people too. So it is what it is.
Patrick, thank you so much. This was really wonderful.
Yes, thank you. Right. Thank you so much. Bravo.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to shift gears here, and our next presenter is Gray Becken.
Rocky Mountain.
And
Should I do it from here?
If you can.
Okay.
Yeah. So hold on, we're gonna do a little technical switch here. Nick, I was channeling you as I was watching that map and thinking about how the Madaba map is somewhat a pictorial map. And I don't know what criteria, it would make it as that definition.
Well, it's got some of the features, the color and the enlarged buildings and so on. I mean, certainly predated pictorials.
Patrick, your map porn subreddit got me into maps in the first place, so I feel like I'm meeting my hero right now. I actually know it's very cool to meet you.
Wow, I'm happy to hear that.
You're pretty regular. Are you post to that? And you have another site that you.
Posted in a while, but I did used to post a little bit on map porn, and now I post sometimes on old maps, another map subreddit.
Yeah, that's a good one too. There's one called border porn, and I hate saying all this, but it's just people posting pictures at like border corners and tri-points, and I'm from Colorado. We have the Four Corners, and that's the border porn is actually one of my favorite subreddits too. So that's worth checking out.
Yeah, I haven't looked at that one. There's also paper towns for city maps.
We need to mute yourselves.
Oh,
You should. Yeah. I think I have the same problem. Who's a Zoom expert? Can you click share?
oh no, this is,
Have you allowed?
um,
And who knows how to mute this Mac? Where do we go to mute him?
Is he in Zoom?
Yeah, well, he's in Zoom, but his microphone we're getting some feedback on it.
Maybe I'll mute from there.
Okay, there we go. All right, and then, let's see, it's on the big mountain. Oh. Oh. Like, here. Mainly the Himalaya. Okay, I think I'm gonna pull an audible here, and I think we're gonna get you set up, and we're gonna let Tom go now. Okay. And then we're gonna, why don't we come in the kitchen and we'll work on this.
okay, good.
I will have you my website on your PC.
Not the first time this has happened. You're gonna drive from here, or you need to like?
Yeah, well,
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
sorry, do you have a mouse?
No, I do, I mean.
All right.
Yeah, to get to it. Not zero.
I always arrive. Okay. Some of them, I know they're.
This one, we're gonna download it, okay?
Yeah. So, PDF.
Okay. And we're gonna.
2019. Oh, you got it.
Double.
All right.
No, this is what you want?
Yeah, I just hold in.
Please don't hang out, it's right here. Is that what you want? Yeah. Each up and each down, that cover everything you're gonna. Okay, so I'm gonna get out of the way.
Okay.
And you're gonna.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have an account, it might need to do
My name is Tom Bryant, and most of the maps that I've been aware of at this the society here are old maps. These are new maps. And so I'm going to spend a few moments today and talk about a book that I published 10 years ago called California 2.0. And the book that mapped out actually how we could have better alignment at a regional level in the state. And the book asks sort of two questions. What's wrong with the current system, which I'm not going to talk about today. And the second point was what if we change things, what might it look like? And that's the maps, and that is what I'm going to talk about.
Is this the purpose of, is this a political purpose that the county is, or like, what's the purpose of doing that?
To solve some problems that the state has,
Okay,
that we have as a society,
okay.
right? And again, I'm going to try to avoid all that, but if people want to talk about it later, we can do that. The book starts with history, and so that's where I'm also going to start. But actually, before I even say that, I want to give a plug to the last issue of our latest issue of Calipia has an article by Dan Skolin. Oh, you're Dan? Yeah. Okay, well, so shout out to Dan. So the article was on some maps of the Native American tribes in California. And so when I started researching for this book, I actually was interested in actually having or using one of those maps. I was interested in using the Grover map overlaid on natural geography. And to talk a little bit about that as sort of the form of governance in California long before Caucasians came into California. But I realized that as I got into it that A, there was nothing meaningful that I could say, and B, I was actually interested in the Grover map. For those of you who don't know, it really, the anthropologists in Berkeley put together a map of the various language groups of Native American tribes in California. And I was actually interested in tying that a little bit closer to the natural geography. The actual map itself is more of a cartoon than what I would call a cartographic map. But yeah, I passed on it, but it's still one of my interesting maps. And so I thought that was pretty interesting.
Excuse me just for a second, can I show this? For people who are new to this group, this is the magazine you made reference to.
Yeah.
And when you join the Map Society, you get this on a biannual basis, so
This year.
twice a year, and it's
Our publisher is
spectacular.
here. Yes, Guilty Man.
So anyway, check out your article. So what I really want to talk about is, so in the summer of 1846, California declared itself a territory of the United States. And 18 months later, they discovered gold in California. In 1846, when we declared ourselves a territory of the United States, there was less than 10,000 non-Native Americans in California, less than 10,000. There's like 7,500 non-American Indians. Within the 5 years from the beginning of 1948 on, 300,000 men, mostly men, flooded into California. Just a phenomenal population change. And so in the summer of 1849, so about 18 months after the discovery of gold, the territorial governor could see the writing on the wall that one, California was going to become a state, and two, there needed to be a formal legal construct within California to deal with mining claims and land claims and everything else that counties do. And so in the fall of 1849, he invited 48 delegates to Monterey to create a constitution for the state. And one of the first things that the convention did was appoint a committee to recommend the first counties for California. And I should have actually backed up. The governor invited 48 individuals from what he considered to be the 10 districts of California, or the 10 proto counties of California. 8 of those were the Spanish colonies along the coast, the major ones, the major mission colonies along the coast. And the other 2 were the San Joaquin Valley and Sacramento Valley. So they formed this committee. The delegates are meeting, then they go home. They come back in the beginning of the new year, 1850, and they immediately take up the recommendation of the committee for formation of counties. The committee comes back and recommends the 10 that the governor had proposed, plus another 8 in addition to those 10. So 18 counties. They weren't legislature, but the delegates at this convention didn't agree with the committee's recommendations. And so they haggled over this for another month. And finally, in February of 1850, they enacted 27 counties, the original 27 counties, California. And that's what I'm going to show here. Talk about for a second. So this is a map of those 27 counties. And so a couple of things about this. Again, you have all of the counties along the coast, which basically mirrored what the original Spanish colonies. I had seen an image of this map, but there's no digital information that I could found. Or actually, there's very little digital information for this. So in deference to Patrick, this is my creation, or in terms of actually drawing this. And so the way that I was able to do this is that's doing part of my research. I was actually in the library of the California Historical Society here in San Francisco, and I ran across a book published in 1923, which was a compilation of the history of the surveying of the counties in California. And it was commissioned by the governor and published then. And so that book goes through each survey, each county as it changed over time. And so with the help of that book, I could actually create this map. So this is the digital version of a map, as far as I know. It's the only one that I'm aware of. So
Gold district is well represented.
Sorry?
The gold area is well represented.
Exactly. That's what I was just going to point out. So you can see where, so these are the Spanish colonies here. And so that was sort of a given. The argument was all about this, right?
Yeah.
So where the gold was. And again, they needed, the reason in part that the state needed counties was to adjudicate claims, in this area. And so this is the very first focus of really sort of new counties, if you will.
Is the name for Marin, is that a typo or was that actually a name?
Yeah, I realized when I was looking at it last night, there's a couple of typos, and Marin is one of them. Calusa, there's another typo there too. So one thing, the second part of the title of the book is California 2.0. And so just very briefly, the 2.0 is a riff on the software development process, right? So in software development, you create or you release beta release, right? You may have bugs or something like that. And so you work on that, maybe you do another beta release, another beta release, but eventually you get to the point where everything's stable and you release a 1.0 application or code or whatever it might be. And then you have that 1.0, and then as errors accumulate or then problems come up, you issue patches to fix things, right? But at some point, the system can't take really any more patches, and you have to sort of start all over again with sort of a clean sheet or a rewrite, and that's 2.0. And so this map in my version is a beta release, right? And it's a beta release because for the next 60 years, every other year, there's a new map on average. Right? Sometimes, 1 year in men for a couple of years. But over that time frame, literally, there's a beta, there's a beta, there's a beta. So until we get here, and I don't know how to move that far down there, but this is the map of today. Our counties that we have. And in 1910, the legislature decided we had enough counties. We didn't need to continue subdividing off these different ones here. And so they changed the Constitution, or amended the Constitution to end making more counties, right? And so one thing to think about, and so again, you see huge subdivision, creating lots of more counties still going on in this area. Some very large counties still down here in the Mojave. So a couple of things about, so this is California 1.0. This is what we still have today. And this from 1910 for 60 years served us very well, served the state very well, enabled growth, things worked well. But starting in the late 1960s, the early 1970s, things began to break down. Single counties. And so the state responded by creating overlay districts. And so, and some of those were, the air quality control districts, the water quality control districts, the coastal commission, all of these districts, all of these entities got created in a very short window, 1967 to 1972. And this was the way of the state coping with the fact that we had counties that were not necessarily aligned with regions. And some of these entities were phenomenally successful. So, I mean, today you fly into LA and you can actually see the mountains. In 1970, that was not the case. And some of them were so-so. So some of those districts were the regional mass transit districts. I would say those have been so-so in terms of success or failure. The Association of Governments was set up in that time frame. Some of that work that they've done has been successful. There's one huge notable failure, and that was what's called the RENA process, which was also set up in the late 1960s. And that RENA process was the state mandating that cities and counties had to have a planning process to plan for growth and to zone for housing for growth. And that process completely failed, as evidenced by the housing crisis. And so when I wrote this book 10 years ago, I started off with the key challenge that I saw going forward is that in the late 60s, early 70s, the state created all these entities to solve the problems, but they didn't solve everything. And going forward from today, there are significant that we face. And my view was 10 years ago and 5 years ago when they did the second edition is that the counties and the cities are not aligned in a way that are going to allow us as a state, as a society, to cope with problems moving forward.
We should probably wrap up and let people ask a few questions.
Look,
Okay.
let me check.
Okay.
So, so the question is what would that become? And so this was, let me just jump. So I was interested in thinking about from a regional perspective, if we started consolidating the counties, what are all the criteria that you use to do this? What would they look like, et cetera? What was the minimum number? And so this is the map that in California 2.0, which shows 19 what I call regional counties. that are aligned with real, the region that we have, and that have the powers and authority to make decisions that currently they don't. And I'm just going to show one map. San Francisco. So we're here. So this is the map of the San Francisco region that I propose. And on the map on the upper right there, in yellow is the borders of the existing counties. And the street map below is the region that I propose for the regional county, the Bay Area County for San Francisco. And as an aside, so that's, there's a tape, actually, there's a table here in the book that goes through, the number of counties that are being annexed together, where you're divesting. Oops, I'm on the wrong one. Well, there's anyway, there's a table in there, it talks about the counties that are merging together. This is not unique to California. This has been done before, specifically New York City. So the turn of the 19th century, New York City was created out of 5 counties with boroughs.
Boroughs, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and for a lot of the same reasons for what are going to drive us forward to something like this. So that was San Francisco. That was the map exercise. Questions?
So what are the barriers to going from 58 counties to 19?
Oh,
It's not, it's just bureaucrats.
I would say there's lots of barriers, but
That's all.
from constitutional amendments to politics, etc. But again, New York did it for New York City, and it's clearly possible for California to do it. The question is what are the motivations that's going to make it happen? And I do believe that some of the challenges that we face, and particularly challenges that we face in the next couple of years, are going to drive serious discussion about changing things. So,
I think
so I could tell you those, but I'm out of time.
I think there are probably fewer barriers to the enlargement of San Francisco County because the number of people who've left San Francisco for the South Bay. I live in the South Bay, and driving up our real estate prices here, and being able to work from home, right? Partly due to the COVID pandemic effect. So they can buy something away from the city and still work for an organization in the city. But yeah, that's just my view of our car area.
We've got one question in here. It's Nick, right? Yeah.
I believe in the 1930s, there was a vote that was taken to merge San Mateo with San Francisco, and failed by 1 vote. Can you tell me, there's not much gold in San Francisco, why San Francisco was cut off from San Mateo back in the 80s?
San Francisco was cut off from the very beginning. And so, yeah, San Francisco is unique. I mean, one, it's a city and a county, but its boundaries are also unique because it was agreed in a charter with the King of Spain, and so that's really the fact.
However, it survived as a county, San Francisco, including San Mateo, for some time before they were split.
Yeah, I don't think that was San Francisco. I think it was Santa Clara.
No, San Francisco.
No, San Francisco and San Mateo.
I have a map, at home shows that
Actually,
San
that's the
Francisco
map I
County.
showed. We can look at and see that.
Yeah.
The 27 map, San Mateo didn't exist in the original county map. So there was various subdivisions that occurred to get to the 56 that we have now. But let me just talk about one thing. So relative to that region right there. The current process that we are going through, the state's going through on housing mandates. The state has mandated that San Francisco Bay Area, will build sufficient housing equivalent to building a second San Francisco in this area right here. That's what it means. And so, and that's why in San Mateo County, where I live, there are 21 cities, only 2, and they all had to submit plans by January 31st. Only 2 had acceptable plans. Everybody else is out of conformance, which is significant. And so,
Some purposely so, right?
sorry?
Some of them purposely so.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
but the implications of that are significant. And so this is some of the shocks that are coming. But the whole San Francisco, and it doesn't end there, you know, that planning process starts again in 2030, and we'll need another San Francisco. That's the implications of growth. And that's, you know, we did well through, you know, the 1960s, but after, you know, 1970 on, we've not done very well.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you for stepping in and shit. Let's see if I can get the next speaker's Zoom set up. Give me just a second. I'm sorry, we're gonna run a little bit over, but hopefully not too far. All right, I think we're ready. Right? Yes. Pretty sure you. How do you want to do this? You want to sit or stand or? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'm Ray Brecken, I'm a geographer, and I'm also the founder of the Living New Deal project. And I brought our maps. This is the first map we did of New Deal San Francisco. And we've also since then done New Deal New York City, New Deal Washington, DC. We're starting New Deal Los Angeles. And this was the beta map. And so we've learned so much since then that I want to come back and do New Deal Bay Area after we finish Los Angeles, which will probably take about 2 years or so because there's so much down there. I'm also the author of Imperial San Francisco, Urban Power, Earthly Ruin, which came out 25 years ago. I just finished recording it as an audiobook. So by next month, I think you'll be able to actually listen to me reading that.
Cool.
But first, let's talk about the model. So this is the model as it was being created. Yeah, it was Tim Pfluger's idea. Tim was an amazing architect who seems to have been involved in everything. I'm going to come back to him in a while. The idea was to create a three-dimensional model using WPA workers for planning and educational purposes. It debuted at the Treasure Island World's Fair. This was just a part of it. I think they were still building it at that time. The reason for it was the 2 bridges had been built during the Great Depression, and we needed to figure out how to get traffic between them as well as up the peninsula. But there were other plans too. These are WPA workers surveying Market Street in anticipation of a subway system, which of course we had to wait a bit for until the war was finished. And what Pfluger knew was that the city is so three-dimensional that a two-dimensional map wasn't going to cut it in doing planning. So it was supposed to be permanently in San Francisco City Hall. It was briefly there. This is Mayor Rossi dedicating it. It's roughly 40 by 40 feet. So it's a colossal model. It's about 1,600 square feet. Well, there were a lot of vicissitudes, but it got kicked out during the war, ended up, most of it, in a warehouse over in East Bay. The University of California technically owns it. It was in terrible shape when I heard about it in about 12 years ago. It was covered with decades of dust, and it was in lots of pieces. I tried to get people interested in it to find a home for it. These are archivist and the historian of the PUC. They really wanted to bring it back. This is Carl Nolte looking at it in the warehouse. Carl did a wonderful article in the Chronicle saying we need to find a home for this. It didn't work. But as I say, miracles do happen. This Dutch couple from Amsterdam, no, excuse me, Rotterdam, I told them about the model in 2017, and they thought this would be great for getting people to talk about the city's past, present, and future. Let's just do it. This woman made it happen, Dina Chalabi. She was working at the Museum of Modern Art. That's Lisbeth in the background. And let's see. Oh, there's Stella. Stella was her sort of lieutenant. Stella sort of made it happen. Fortunately, we've got a lot of archival images of the map being built. We think it took about 300 workers to build this thing. It was constructed in a church, it appears, but I don't know where that was. This is the Dog Patch neighborhood, the old Union Iron Works. And here it is before we clean it. So here you can see the workers working on it. They employed artists to do the painting of it. There were a lot of women involved in it. Well, Lisbeth and Joss and Stella managed to get it transferred across the bay. Here it is, one of the workers dismantling it, because part of it was at the College of Environmental Design. And here we are unpacking it in a warehouse south of Market Street that is used by the public library.
Is that a map in the background on the wall there of?
I believe, yes, that is, which you're going to see in a moment. That is the key to it. So here we are unpacking it. A lot of it was just in pieces. We needed to do a lot of reconstruction.
Right. It's made out of wood.
It's all made out of wood. It's fir and pine. And we constructed these platforms for it. This is part of the model that has not been cleaned yet. You can see it looks really gray. That's not its natural color. Here is Stella looking over it as she teaches us how to clean it professionally. Thank God. There were a lot of volunteers. The summer of 2018 was some of the most fun I've ever had, working with all these volunteers to put this thing back together. As I say, we learned how to professionally clean it, then to put it together. They saved the ferry building for me. I have to do that. That's before I put on my COVID weight. And what really fascinated me was how this was constructed, this three-dimensional model. Here are these compartments. Wow. Unfortunately, we have these black and white archival photos. It really is ingenious. This is Diamond Heights before we cleaned it. This is after we cleaned it. And you can see that it's a three-dimensional snapshot of what the city was like around 1940, just before Pearl Harbor. Diamond Heights had been laid out, the streets had been laid out, but it hadn't been built on yet, mostly. This is a WPA project that most people don't know about because it doesn't have a plaque on it. It's that. And here's that section of the model with the Cow Palace right there. I cleaned that too. I'm very proud of
Palace
that.
is in San Francisco?
It's just across the border.
To Daly City.
Yeah. So it extends actually down to Mount San Bruno. So there's a bit of San Mateo. And then here we are putting together. The idea that Elizabeth and Jaws had was to display the neighborhoods in the various branch libraries. And so we had these vitrines made. It was called Take Apart. And the question was, is there room in San Francisco for San Francisco? And here's one of the vitrines. I can't remember which. I think this was in the main library, as a matter of fact. It really did encourage discussion. It just got people going. They got incredibly enthusiastic. Thousands signed petitions to bring the whole model together and put it on permanent display as Pfluger intended. This was at the San Francisco History Fair. And David Rumsey was involved in it. He posted down at the Rumsey Map Center the aerial survey, which was used to illustrate it. And he had a high resolution photo mosaic made of the model once we had cleaned it. Oh, that was an article I wrote for Calafia about the model. Now, just a sort of parentheses, this got me really interested in three-dimensional models. So everywhere I go in a city, you know, I look out for a civic museum, we don't have, and to see these models, and almost every self-respecting world-class city has one. That's the one at the Queen's Museum. This is the one in Sydney, which you can walk over because it's so big. There's one in Shanghai, which I haven't been to. This is Vienna without walls, Vienna with walls. Oops, no, I got that mixed up. Paris has a lot of models in Les Invalides. This is Amsterdam, Perugia. These models are invaluable for learning about the history and growth of the city. Los Angeles has part of a WPA model in the Natural History Museum.
Was there an overarching effort then, a WPA effort in various cities to build these? Was there an overarching WPA effort?
Yes, there seem to have been a lot of them, and we have, as far as I can determine, the last full intact model. Madrid has a wonderful one.
When were those done, right?
I think that was 19th century. I think that was 19th century.
Yes, and there's a famous one of ancient Rome as was
That's right.
completed
Made.
about 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's at Ayer.
Which is very useful for archaeologists like me.
Hamburg has 6. They've got a palace that is their city museum. So you can go from 800 to the 17th. You can really see how the city grew along the Elbe River. There was a big fire in 1842, so they did this. That was the burned part of it. And then this is the 19th century city. And children love these things. They're just fascinated by them. It really is an educational tool. This is kids looking at the LA model. So the question that they asked was, is there room in San Francisco for San Francisco? The answer was resounding, no. I've been trying to find a home for it. The perfect place would have been the unused trading hall of the old San Francisco Mining Exchange at 350 Bush, which was Tim Pfluger's first building. I couldn't even get the courtesy of response from the building's owner after I sent them a packet on it. Pfluger and Diego Rivera were great friends. That's why Rivera and Kahlo came to San Francisco so much. And it was Pfluger's idea to get Diego Rivera to paint the great mural that he did at the Treasure Island World's Fair, which is now on display at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. Right at the center of that is Tim Pfluger, because they were such good friends and because Pfluger came up with so many ideas, including the model. If you go, Pfluger has a plan of San Francisco City College, which he was designing at the time. There it is with the WPA sculpture by Bufano in front of it. Recently, these three professors in dark came to me and said, we'd like to have that model at City College. There's Stella. And this is the room we want to have it in. It's in the Student Union, which is soon to be vacated. And it's just large enough to have it with a bank of windows facing out on the southeastern city. It's a perfect place for it. And this was just published in the Chronicle. The mural, Rivera's mural, will be moving back to City College into a building designed for it so that you'll be able to see it from outside. The model, if we can get it there, will be very close to it. And the hope is that both of these and the campus itself will become a memorial to Pfluger, who embodies the kind of civic imagination almost entirely absent in San Francisco today. And we will be setting up a dedicated fund so that you can help make this happen. And so I'm hoping that in a few years, we will be able to bring back this extraordinary artifact. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bravo.
Are you aware of the Bay Area model in Sausalito?
What's that?
The Bay Area model in Sausalito?
There's not enough room there, and not very many people go there anymore.
What did you say?
Not many people.
There's not enough room for it, and
No. I'm just wondering. You mentioned all the models that. The Bay Area model is a very interesting model as well. It's huge.
Oh, the Bay model actually was created by the Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah.
To find out what would happen if the Reber plan was realized, which would have created levees across the bay to turn the south and north parts of the bay into freshwater reservoirs. They found out what anybody would have known, which is essentially that they wouldn't have been freshwater reservoirs. They would have been filled with sewage and industrial waste, because that was before the Clean Water Act. And so it never happened, thank God.
Right.
But the model was actually very useful for studying currents in the bay, like when we have the oil spills and things, they were using it. But now all that stuff is done in computers. So it's not much used anymore, if at all. I haven't been there for years.
Well, it's being redone. They're updating it to make it more accurate, and as we speak, and it's still worth seeing.
Okay, I'll have to go over there.
I have a question. Bob Garfinkel in Union City. Was this map or part of it on display when in the 50s or so in the Ferry Building? I remember seeing a map like this in the Ferry Building. It may not have been the whole thing. The other thing I want to point out is that the Treasure Island Fair was not the World's Fair. That was in New York. The San Francisco, it was a Golden Gate Exposition, totally separate from the New York World's Fair of 1940. So just please, from now on, correct yourself. It's the Golden Gate Exposition.
The GGIE. Yeah, well, they called it the World's Fair, so I call it the World's Fair. I mean, you know, there's always been this rivalry between San Francisco and New York that New Yorkers are completely unaware of.
Well, I'm not from New York, so I don't care what they call it, but we should be correct that it's the Golden Gate Exposition.
Yeah.
Wasn't there?
It's where my parents went on their first date.
Okay.
What was the name of the fair in San Francisco? That was the big one.
Not Cali.
The map you were thinking about at the Ferry Building is not this one. That was actually made in the 1920s by a Hollywood set designer, I believe. And it was all California. It was a relief map. And it apparently is still in crates on a pier on the south waterfront, but it's in terrible shape. And it's made out of plastic. But,
Okay. I remembered seeing a map there and I didn't know whether it was this one or not, scale model.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like 60 years ago.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's gone. No respect for these things. Ellen, other
Well,
question?
I'm just curious how you got involved in all this, and I think it's wonderful. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you. Well, it's because as I said, I'm the founder and project scholar of the Living New Deal. What we're doing is basically locating, all the public works that the New Deal left us. That's all around us, but we don't see them. And so I got a call. I had an office in the geography department. I got a call from the custodian at the UC warehouse when it was down in San Pablo. She said, we've got this model that was made by the WPA. Are you interested? I said, I'll be right down. And I was so blown away by the little that I could see because it was in 17 huge wooden crates. And then it was moved to a warehouse in Richmond, which is where it is now. And so we're hoping that City College can get permission from the regents to move it over to City College. And I'd like to see City College become a kind of destination because it don't get no respect, which it deserves, because it is the working men's college. And that's why Rivera wanted his mural to be there, Rivera at Pfluger.
What's the timing on possibility of getting it into the city college?
The most optimistic estimate is that the mural will come back in 4 years. It won't be at the Museum of Modern Art much longer. So if you haven't seen it, you should see it. Boy, you can study that thing. And so we're hoping that the model will get there sooner than that because it can be used for all sorts of things with the kind of multimedia museum interpretation we have now. All sorts of stuff with it, and they have a museum training program there too. So whenever I see these other models, they're often in, like the one in Los Angeles, they use sophisticated multimedia to interpret it. Like I would like to see the hydrology of San Francisco projected on it. Oh, I'm about to go back to New York City, and there is a model there that I saw when the book Mannahatta came out. Mannahatta is a book about primordial Manhattan. And when it came out, there was a model made that somehow you toggle between primordial Manhattan and today. And the creator of that is going to show it to me. It's in a warehouse now. Photos of that.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys, everyone, for joining us for this. Take the time for coffee if you want or whatever. And thank you. We've got August 19th at the Rumsey Center.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Eleanor, for hosting.
Thank you, Tom.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Hey, Tom. Tom, can you hear me still? Oh, before you cut out. Yeah. How did your winter study course on GIS for William students go? Uh-oh, they're cutting out. Okay. Yeah, this thing. All right, I'll email you my question. Yeah, how did your winter? I'm asking about the.
Will you send out a link to the? Will you be sending out a link to the recording?
Thank you, guys.
Okay, will you be sending out a link to the recording?